If you have already watched this introductory information, you can skip ahead no more than 14 minutes. Hello, welcome. I am predicting that famous singer-songwriter Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel will die on August 8th, 2025. I'm also predicting that his funeral will be on August 12th, 2025. It is also possible that instead of him dying on August 8th, there will be a relevant, clear prophetic sign that will occur on August 8th that will reveal that Paul Simon will die on August 12th, and therefore August 12th will not be the date of his funeral. This time-stamped email proves that this prediction that Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025 has been known since November 9th. We can see here the timestamp November 9th, 2024. On November 8th, 2024, we received the relevant prophetic signs related to Paul Simon. And as I wrote right here, God was pointing to November 8th ahead of time because Simon's death will point to Revelation chapter 8, verse 1. And this is the reason why Paul Simon will die on August 1st, 2025. In short, the date 8:1 and 11:8 hint at Revelation 8:1 in the Bible, which describes a period of silence that was observed in heaven. Paul Simon's first hit was Sound of Silence. As I wrote right here, it is exactly 38 weeks between November 8th and August 1st, 2025, and Paul Simon is predicted to die at the age of 83, for which 38 weeks hints at. All right, the analysis that God was pointing to August 1st was 100% correct. However, Paul Simon did not die on August 1st. Instead, God provided clear and relevant signs related to Paul Simon, which revealed adding 7 more days to reach August 8th. The sign we received was the news report, the breaking of the news of the sale of the storied mansion in Los Angeles that was built for the most prolific TV producer in history, and God uses extremes and records for his signs. Aaron Spelling, who produced the longest-running drama series in history, Seventh Heaven. That's how we get the addition of 7 days to reach August 8th. And Simon is associated with mansions, or I should say in God's signs, mansion theme and symbolism is related to Paul Simon because his biggest solo album was the Graceland album, and the song Graceland is about Elvis Presley's mansion. There's lots to that for why God is using this theme, but this is immediately recognized. I've been following Paul Simon's signs for years now, and I've known about this theme of mansion symbolism for over 3 years. And so that's why it was immediately recognized that this sign involving the sale of this mansion, and one of the big signs is the sale of Paul Simon's mansion. It's not only a mansion sign on August 1st that we received, but the story was the sale of the mansion. And that's again because one of the signs is the sale of Paul Simon's mansion back on July 1st, 2022. And that the details of that prophetic sign are explained elsewhere. Now, another thing about the 7 days connection is Paul Simon at this time on August 1st he still is, but he won't be by the date of August 8th, touring for his new album, 7 Psalms. The cover art for the album is from Thomas Moran's Two Owls, and it depicts owls. And on this same August 1st date, another prophetic sign was a mass shooting in the 41st state. Paul Simon was born in Paul Simon was born in 41, and the reason for that, the significance of that, is that the word he is equal to 41 in simple English gematria. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. And it is a key that opens the bottomless pit in one of the 7 trumpet judgments in the book of Revelation that follows the period of silence that was observed as in the sound of silence in the beginning of Revelation chapter 8, Revelation 8:1. And Paul Simon is known for being a music composer, and music compositions use music keys. And also, so that's why the key, the 41st state, clearly hints at Paul Simon. In general, God uses the mass shootings for symbolism for the mark of the Antichrist, which is also mentioned in that same trumpet judgment, is alluded to anyway, in that same trumpet judgment in which the key opens the door to the bottomless pit to the demons that will cross over into the earthly realm and demonically possess people who have taken the mark of the Antichrist, which is the thing that comes out, which is symbolized by the things that come out of guns and go into people. That's why mass shootings are prophetic signs. So we have a mass shooting in the 41st state, and it was in the bar named the Owl Bar. The name of the bar in which the 4 deaths occurred, and God is associated the number 4 with Paul Simon and the signs in general, and that's explained elsewhere. But it was 4 deaths, and that's because the door that opens to the bottomless pit is symbolized by the number 4, because the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is the symbol for a door, and it's the key that opens the door to the bottomless pit. And so that's why the number 4. And so it was 4 deaths in the Owl Bar in the 41st state. Paul Simon's born in 41, and it's a key. And he was born on the 13th day of the month, and the 41 is the 13th prime number. And so that's why we also have the number 4 there. And when we add 7 plus 4 days, we get a total of 11 days. And we add that 7 plus 4 days to August 1st, gets us to August 12th. And also August 12th is 11 days after August 1st. And on August 1st, the story was the sale of the mansion, which sold for $110 million, which hints at 11. In other words, what I am saying is that God is also pointing to August 12th. And I believe at this time that it is the date for the funeral. But if this isn't correct, it is because Paul Simon will die on August 12th, and instead on August 8th, we will receive more clear, relevant prophetic signs that will probably involve the number 4 and indicate adding 4 more days to reach the date on which it is predicted that Paul Simon will die on August 12th. But as of right now anyway, I believe that Paul Simon will die on August 8th, 7 days after the 7th heaven signed the sale of the mansion of the producer of 7th Heaven. And also, by the way, Paul Simon's Graceland album released the song The Boy in the Bubble, and that song was inspired by one of Aaron Spelling's TV movies, The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Another connection between Aaron Spelling, the mansion sale, and Paul Simon. And also, The Boy in the Bubble song is from the Graceland Mansion album, and that album is Paul Simon's best-selling album, solo album, and it is the 7th album of Paul Simon. Now, the reason for going into this right here at the beginning of this little introduction, the main point here, is that I predicted Paul Simon's death on August 8th, back in November of 2024. For those that are reasonable, for those with eyes to see, this will be clearly recognized. Again, I predicted back on November 9th, 2024, that Paul Simon would die on August 1st. Then we received the clear and relevant signs that indicated adding 7 days to reach August 8th. And so when Paul Simon dies on August 8th, as is predicted, it will therefore mean that I predicted his death on August 8th, if you will, back in November of 2024. The reasonable person will recognize that this is true. A dirty bomb is a conventional explosive that uses radioactive material. I am predicting that 3 dirty bombs will explode in New York City, in Times Square, Penn Station, and Grand Central Station. There will then be a massive evacuation from Manhattan Island. I am predicting that these 3 dirty bombs will explode on either August 30th or September 4th. I am also predicting that a dirty bomb will explode in the port of Los Angeles on September 4th. I am predicting that Tehran, Iran, will be nuked by the US or possibly Israel on September 7th, 2025. This will obviously be in response to the dirty bombs that are predicted to explode in New York City. I am predicting that Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom will die in a plane crash in St. Louis as they are traveling from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles in Busch Stadium in St. Louis on August 2nd, 2028. This will be during the predicted presidential campaign of Gavin Newsom. As a result of Gavin Newsom's death, Michelle Obama will become the Democrat Party's presidential nomination. Michelle Obama will, quote unquote, win the election over J.D. Vance on November 7th, 2028, and will become the president on January 20th, 2029. Donald Trump is predicted to run as J.D. Vance's vice president. This scheme to overcome the 22nd Amendment will backfire and inspire Michelle Obama and Barack Obama to run on the ticket with Barack Obama as Michelle Obama's vice president. She will then step down and Barack Obama will become the president again. It is predicted that there will be a massive Mary apparition on the beach in Rio, Brazil on April 24th, 2029. It is now recognized that there will be 2 massive Mary apparitions on the beach in Rio. The first of the 2 is predicted to be on March 22nd, 2029. These predicted Mary apparitions will not be secretive. They will be mainstream, worldwide news. Like all Mary apparitions in history, including at Lourdes, Guadalupe, and Fatima, this Mary apparition will be a demon pretending to be Mary. It is predicted that on April 26th, 2029, the key will open the bottomless pit and fallen angels will cross over into the earthly realm. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to the 5th trumpet judgment that is described in Revelation chapter 9, when the demonic realm collides with the earthly realm. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to demons pretending to be aliens. The demons pretending to be aliens will claim to be here to help us with our nuclear weapons. It is predicted that Pope Francis will be resurrected from the grave on April 26th, 2029, and it is possible that on this day, Pope Francis will announce that aliens have arrived and have made him the ambassador for the world. This will immediately give Pope Francis, the Antichrist, supreme power over governments of the world. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to a zombie pandemic and the masses becoming demonically possessed that will be facilitated through the thing, which is the mark of the Antichrist and 5G frequencies. April 26th, 2029 will be a symbolic beginning to the coming genocide politicide in America. The resurrection rapture event will occur on Pentecost on May 27th, 2029. On September 11th, 2029, there will be a catastrophic asteroid hit of Earth in the Indian Ocean. The greatest seismic effect of this will be felt on the other side of the globe, which is North America, and this will trigger an eruption of Yellowstone volcano and will cause the volcano in the Canary Islands to collapse into the Atlantic Ocean and send a mega tsunami towards the East Coast. It will also trigger the collapse of the Hoover Dam, which will cause a water panic in California, and many other devastating earthquakes. The day of the Lord, the second coming of Lord Jesus Christ, Judgment Day, will be at the end of 2031. The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. All right. Welcome. God is pointing, regarding Paul Simon and his predicted death, to 2 dates, August 8th and August 12th. This video was originally recorded when it was believed that because logically the latter of the 2 dates comes last, that would be the date that Paul Simon would die, August 12th. However, it has been considered, and it's possible that Paul Simon will die on August 8th. And the reason why God is also pointing to August 12th is that this will be the day of his funeral. And so in other words, I'm predicting that Paul Simon will die on August 8th and his funeral will be on August 12th, or that he will simply die on August 12th. And the reason for him pointing to August 8th is that there will be clear, relevant, related signs to Paul Simon that will reveal adding 4 more days to get August 12th. Anyway, the point is that this video must be watched. It's extremely important, and it'll explain the reasons for why God is pointing to, or how God is pointing to August 12th. And when the predictions comes to pass, it should be realized by the wise person that every minute of every video on this channel, including the Paul Simon videos, must be watched, because God is telling these extremely important stories through these signs and connections that are different in each video. And through the stories, he is communicating essential and extremely important knowledge. Again, I'll just repeat it to be extra clear. I am predicting that Paul Simon will die on August 8th, and that his funeral will be on August 12th. And this video is about August 12th, and it was recorded when it was believed that August 12th would be the day that Paul Simon would die. So all of the information that I'll be explaining for how August 12th is known is still 100% valid. Just realize that I now believe that it will be the day of the funeral instead of his death, which is predicted to be on August 8th. Genesis 7:4 is the first mention of the flood judgment when God warned Noah. August 12th, 2025 will be 7 plus 4 days after the sale of the mansion built for the producer of Seventh Heaven and a prophetic mass shooting in Montana in which there were 4 deaths. Okay? So, let me just repeat that. Genesis 7:4 is the first mention of the flood judgment when God warned Noah. Paul Simon's death will be a warning of judgment and destruction for America. The biggest, arguably, baby boomer singer, American singer, folk singer as well, okay? And all of Paul Simon's songs God has been using. So Paul Simon symbolizes America, in other words, and his death will symbolize the warning because it will point to the period of silence in heaven, which was a warning before the 7 trumpets of judgment. But anyway, Genesis 7:4 is the warning. Paul Simon's death will be a warning on August 12th, and it will be 7 plus 4 days after the sale of the mansion of the producer of Seventh Heaven, and also on that day, a mass shooting prophetic sign in Montana in which there were 4 deaths. I explained the details of this prophetic sign in another video. Now, this date that this occurred, the Seventh Heaven sign and the 4 deaths sign, which hints at Genesis 7:4, this August 1st date was in turn 7 times 4 days after the date 7/4, and the flooding in the 7 times 4th state, Texas, to join the Union. This flooding occurred near where Simon currently lives, and as explained elsewhere, the flooding pointed to Paul Simon. I explained that in the Texas flooding video. It's an amazing prophetic sign, and it, in fact, pointed to Paul Simon. I mean that literally one of the biggest reasons for this prophetic sign was to point to Paul Simon in Wimberley, Texas, which is near Kerr County, which is where the flooding occurred with Mystic Camp and everything. And as I explained in the other video, part of the connections in that story that God's telling was the prophetic flooding in Wimberley, Texas in 2015. Okay, that's another story though. But that's amazing. Did you see that? So the day Paul Simon is predicted to die will be 7 plus 4 days after August 1st and the 7th heaven and 4 death sign, which was in turn 7 times 4 days after the date 7/4 and the flooding in the 7 times 4th state. Because it all hints at Genesis 7:4 about the flood, which is why the flooding on the date 7/4 in the 7 times 4th state. But then you add 7 times 4 days and then 7 plus 4 days to get the date of the predicted death of Paul Simon. And again, the flooding in the 7 times 4th state on the date 7/4 pointed to Paul Simon.